Hey, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here, trying to get the levels up and on so we can so I can actually hear myself. Hold on a second. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to another edition of the Friday FARcast. One of these days, I'm going to bring the Philip K. Dick intro back in here. I just haven't done it yet. So what's happening? What's going on out there? It is Friday, the 19th of May. We're creeping up on Gemini, aren't we? Got that Gemini sun coming. Speaking of Gemini sun and strange oddities as it relates to passing and death and related human tragedy. So Chris Cornell, as we have duly noted, committed suicide. Some people believe he did not commit suicide, that he was killed. I don't know. I haven't looked at it very much, other than the fact that he died on the same day, 37 years after Ian Curtis from Joy Division committed suicide. So it's a strange and perhaps tragic symmetry. And the message seems to be from people that, you know, that even when you have all of these wonderful things in life, and Chris Cornell was blessed with some gifts, man. I mean, the guy had pipes. I mean, he could go, deep into the basso profundo, and he could, get up there in alto range and rock scream with the best of them. He was right in there with like Robert Plant, and he was amazing. Chris Cornell was amazing. He was a handsome guy, charismatic, and he was a real artist. Very into food. I think he had that restaurant in Paris. Now, if indeed he did decide to end his own life, we just don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And of course, many of us have witnessed what it takes to be in the game and what people have to give up as a result of their fame, their fortune, their power, and everything that goes along with it. And a lot of it has to do with their soul. And I'm not saying that that's what happened with Chris Cornell, although we don't know. We don't know, because it certainly seems like the model, the current model, maybe not the Soundgarden model circa 1988 or 1989, although that could have been well in place because we know it has been for a long period of time. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was time for the devil to collect his due. And as is wont, perhaps people take their own lives in situations like that. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked into it fully, but he's gone. We're not going to have another reformation of Audio Slave, or I'm not going to have a reunion of Soundgarden. It's just not going to happen. It's really interesting that the main lead singers that we associate with like grunge and grunge metal, they're pretty much dead, right? Gone. Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, he had a terrible heroin issue problem. He's gone. Of course, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, gone. We have Chris Cornell, and he's gone. And Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots, he's gone. So there's, four of the biggest grunge bands, grunge metal, kind of the post-rock sound are gone. It's interesting. Who's left? Who's left from that ilk, from that era? Axl Rose is still around. I guess you could count Perry Farrell in. I had the weirdest night with Perry Farrell in San Francisco one time. It was so bizarre. I won't talk about it today because we got other stuff to talk about. But maybe someday I'll talk about my strange evening with Perry Farrell. And so who else is still around from that? Billy Corgan, I guess, maybe. Billy's really changed. Billy has become the truth warrior. He's taken a lot of heat for it too. It is not cool to be a conservative. It is not cool to be somebody who is thinking in alternative ways or alternative fashion, because there is a bucket waiting for you. There's a nice bucket waiting for you. I was on this website today called Conservative Watch. There is a war going on in this country. It is clearly a war in the country. There's a war in the world, and it is an ideological war, and it's not pretty at times. Not at all. So we're going to talk today about Seth Rich and some of the stuff that I have found around, and I'm still working on this thing. I'm putting together some astrology, and I'm putting together some of the pieces of information that I've found, and some of this stuff is really bizarre. I'm going to play an interview with his family that took place just 2 days after he died. I think it was the day of the funeral, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm going to play the video. Not now. I'm going to play the video, and it's really, I wish I could convey it in a visual sense, but I can't. So you have to listen to it and go find the link and watch it for yourself. It is really bizarre. It is Sandy Hook bizarre. Sandy Hook bizarre. So we're going to try to piece some things together and give you some background on Seth Rich and his very strange family and what all of this just might mean. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about something that happened yesterday it was either yesterday or Wednesday, one of the two. I think it was Wednesday, now that I think about it. As you might know, I'm into sports. I like sports. It's a distraction, and sometimes it frustrates the hell out of me. So I watched this guy, Colin Cowherd, who's, entertaining. Colin's a Capricorn. He's around my age. I think he's about maybe 2 years younger than me, 3 years. He's pretty smart. He's also pretty smarmy. And he had this guy on his show named Lavar Ball. And Lavar Ball is nuts. And I don't think Lavar Ball is a good guy. I don't think he's a good guy at all. He has taken control of his son's lives. They're basketball players. His oldest son will probably be one of the top 3 picks in the NBA draft. He's a good kid. The son is good. The father, on the other hand, claims that he was, when he was younger, he could have beat Michael Jordan one-on-one. And, this is a guy that averaged 2 points a game for Eastern Washington when he was in college. He was not, he was not a Jordan-esque player. Let's get that real. But he's good at creating hype for his sons. But he's not a good dude. His wife had a stroke while the basketball season was on, and he told his sons, we're not going to go see her until the season's over, or she's not coming home until the season's over. And I thought that was kind of mind-blowing. And actually, as I unwind this next piece, it's quite telling in a lot of ways. He has a company called Big Baller, and it's all about Ball being their last name. And his 2 younger sons have committed already to UCLA. Although if I'm UCLA, I want no part of them. They're good players. I want no part of them, and I want no part of LeVar Ball. So here, I'll set the stage for you. He's on this show with... Maybe I should just play it. Let me see if I can find it first. Again, I'm going kind of live here, and... let me see if I can play this thing. All right, let's go. Let's just search this. Let's do it like this. You're going to hear what happens here. I think it's interesting. I know it's sports and everything, we're going to get to. We're going to get to this whole thing with Seth Rich. Let's see. That's 14 minutes long. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. It's a bit too long. Okay, let me just break it down for you. Essentially, there's a woman who's on Colin Cowherd's show named Christine Leahy, and she was asking Lavar Ball about how many shoes his company has sold. Because not one shoe company wanted to offer his kid a contract because they'd have to work with him. So he's created his own shoe company. Okay, fine. If you're going to be a helicopter parent with turbos and a jackass to boot and a hype machine, why not start your own shoe company? So she asks him how many shoes he sold, and he turns on her. He completely turns on her. Won't look at her. He tells her to stay in her own lane. Called her a hater and actually threatened her. It's really kind of a mind-blowing, sort of exchange at a fairly high media level. I mean, this is on Fox Sports TV, right? And Christine Leahy really kind of handled herself well. I mean, she stood up to him and she didn't back down, and he wound up looking like a total ass. And but what was really interesting is that there was Colin Cowherd, and it's his show, and he didn't do anything, and he kind of, said, well, it took me by surprise, and by the time it happened, I just thought, okay, I'm going to let Christine handle this. She's a pro. I'm going to give her, give her an opportunity to, stand up and, respect women. And, look, on the one hand, I get it. Okay. She's got a job. She's in the same world as these men. And sometimes these men can be, pardon my expression, real dicks. And, if you want to play in that world, here's your equal opportunity, and you can come in and, get dirty and, bang elbows with, these guys. And that's what happened. And she looked really good doing it. I mean, she came out, clearly a lot better than Lavar Ball. But in a strange sense, Colin Cowherd played this role where it's almost like the guy who's got the cell phone that's taking the video when something's happening. And I really think, unfortunately, he kind of has epitomized what's become of men, and to a large extent what's become of white men. And I'm just going to say it and be straight up. He did not stand by his woman. He did not. The woman, he let her do her thing. That's great. Okay, I get that. But he didn't come in and say, we're not even a woman. Let's take the female out of it if you want to. But I think it's important to kind of understand that. But he didn't even stand up for somebody on his own team. Let's say she's just a team member. He didn't say to Lavar Ball, Lavar, we don't go there here. I treat you with respect on this show. I don't always agree with you. You push a lot of buttons. You have some interesting things to say, but, you got to tone that down, and you need to respect Christine because she's a part of this show as well. And I have her back. Because you want to have a, serious discussion, then, let's have a serious discussion and respect one another. But it's not going to play with you taking that tone with her or anybody on my show. Didn't come out of his mouth. Okay, and it could have been some guy, it could have been an intern, Ron. And he could have said the same thing. But she is a woman. And so here is this guy, Colin Cowherd, and he lets this whole thing happen. And I don't think he looks good. And he can rationalize it and he can spin it any way he wants. And it's tough, when you're in a situation, and I will say this for him, when you're in a situation and stuff goes sideways and you're dealing with explosive personalities, first of all, you don't necessarily know whether they're clowning and trying to, have a shtick. And then it almost takes you, by surprise. And when things happen like that, we're ripped out of our moment. We are, and if we're not in the moment, we're we just ripped out of our trance for a minute. We don't know what to do, which is why it's important to be in the moment, because at that point, you can go many, many different ways. And he was clearly lulled into a sense of complacency on the show and allowed it to happen. Now, the aftermath of this stuff has also been quite interesting. This woman, who didn't deserve any of this, has received death threats. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. She's received death threats because she stood up to a guy and said, hey, don't treat me like that. This is it's just a bad look for men, right? And it's become kind of a male-female thing. And it's also, unfortunately, degraded into a racial thing. Lavar Ball is black, she's white. And now there's this kind of racial element that's rushed into this really stupid moment in time. And it says a lot about who we are, where we are, that even Lavar Ball should be on that show. And he's been a regular guest. He's on at least once or twice a week because he grabs headlines and he says outrageous things. And he's clearly unhinged. And this is kind of the tone and the tenor of our time. We're in the moment, the extended moment of the unhinged. But I just think that Cowherd could have done more. I'm going to have my son watch. I told my son about it. And he said he should have said something. I mean, this is a kid who's not schooled in really any of the stuff that I talk about on the air. I try to keep it pretty, It's so funny. He's doing a report on terrorism. And I looked at him and I said, you don't want my help. And he knows me, right? I said, look, you write your report, man. I said, if you want any intel from my world, I'll fill you in. But you go write your report. So we're kind of at that stage of life. And, I'll let him figure stuff out because he's not going to, he has to. He's got to figure stuff out on his own. He has to. And it may not be how I see the world or view the universe, but, God bless him. Let's see what he can do in life. Speaking of sons, we're going to turn our attention now to Seth Rich and how quickly it has become this flashpoint that is turned into... It's kind of almost like Seth Rich has become the latest Pizzagate. Doesn't it have that feeling? It feels like it's the latest Pizzagate. And is Seth Rich part of a honey trap here? Was he really killed? Is he really dead? I'm going to read some stuff to you that's going to stretch your thoughts around this. Okay? And some of it has to do with Seth Rich's background, where it comes from, and some of the people associated with his background. Tangentially. I'm working on a post that includes the time of death and the chart for that event and Seth Rich's chart. He was a Capricorn, and he was born on January 3rd, 1989. Somebody who is linked to the whole Seth Rich thing, John Podesta, is also a Capricorn, born January 8th. And Seth Rich, I don't have his rising sign time. I just, whenever I don't have a rising a time, I set it at 6 a.m., and the cool thing that you can do with events and people's charts is like, so for instance, we know that at 4:20, now there's a time, 4:20, at 4:20 in the morning on July 11th, Seth Rich was getting ready to walk into his apartment. He'd been out late, been drinking all night. Apparently he's having issues with his girlfriend. Was getting ready to go to New York and be a part of the DNC and have a large role He was a bit of a software geek. He created a software program to locate polling places. So that was kind of his claim to fame. But at 4:20 in the morning, he had a couple of shots put into his back. Now, people say that he was shot in the head. That's not true. He was not executed gangland style like that. He was shot 2 times. Excuse me. Let me just get down here a little bit. She was shot 2 times in the back. Or he was shot 2 times in the back. And then he was rushed off to a hospital. And we'll get into the whole evolution and sequence of the events there. That's worth noting, okay? But let's go back into his background. Like, who is Seth Rich? Where did he come from? How did he get to where he was in Washington, D.C., and where was he going? Where was he going? These are all important questions. Seth Rich grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. And he is part of a family of 4. He has a brother named Aaron and a father named Joel and a mother named Mary. Joel is the president of Temple Beth El in Omaha. He is apparently a mover and a shaker in the conservative Judaic community in Omaha and has written about it extensively. Both his sons attended various Jewish schools and academies along with their regular high school that they were going to. So they were steeped in the conservative Judaic tradition. One of the things that Seth Rich would do every summer is he would attend Camp Ramah in Wisconsin. And I had no idea what Camp Ramah was, or Camp Ramah. I'm not sure how you exactly pronounce it, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but he would go there every summer. And this is a series of camps that are located all around the country, and they have one in Israel as well. And it's where young people go for a couple weeks, and they get to hang out and cook and play this game called roof ball, and and then they get schooled and trained, and in conservative Judaica and Hebrew. It's a kind of a communal kibbutzing sort of camp atmosphere, right? So he would do this every year, and some of the people that have been associated with Camp Ramah are pretty interesting. You've got Ben Bernanke, who is the head of the Fed. He went to Camp Ramah. Jake Tapper, the annoying guy on CNN, right? Isn't that what he's on CNN? I just know he's the annoying news guy, Jake Tapper. He went to Camp Ramah. And who else? Oh, Wolf Blitzer. So these are all people that have attended this camp. And this camp is nationwide. So it's very interesting. And then they had a kind of a previous version of this camp under a different name. And two of the attendees of that camp were Alan Dershowitz and Noam Chomsky. So you can see that the people who have attended this camp, and not every single one of them, I mean, there's, of course, probably just regular people, but a high degree of these folks have been placed in or have arrived at positions of power and influence, in big-time power and influence. I mean, Ben Bernanke was one of the most powerful people in the world 10 years ago, right? Actually, so it was 2008, so almost 10 years ago. Yeah. Alan Dershowitz and Noam Chomsky, pretty powerful dudes. So this is the camp that Seth Rich attended, and once a year they would, I think when they got older, they actually would attend Camp Ramah in Israel, which is what Seth Rich did. So, look, I'm not trying to make any really obvious connections here, but I find it interesting that he was part of this in some ways, very elite network. Now, he himself probably didn't come from a whole lot of money, not big time East Coast money like Jared Kushner, but he certainly was in a particular networking group. And everything you read about him, he sounds like he's a great kid and enthusiastic and fun and just enjoy politics and all that stuff, right? See, there's plenty of memorial things on Seth Rich if you want to find them on the internet. But after he graduated from high school, he went to Creighton. And Creighton is a Jesuit school. So now we have him moving into an unusual environment. He had Mercury in Aquarius, which is a very bright guy. People at Mercury in Aquarius are pretty bright. And he studied politics, and I think he might have also studied computer sciences. But he was but here he is in this Jesuit school. Now, again, I'm not saying that the Jesuits pulled him aside and said, "Hey, we're going to turn you into a super spy," but we don't know, right? We don't know what happens in these places where there are networks that are being formed and created, and people to be trained and populate those networks so that at some point in time they can do whatever they need to do, right? So he comes from that perspective. It's kind of interesting, right? He's not just sort of your regular kid. And he came up with this piece of software that allowed people to find out where the polling places were. And that got him into a higher level discussion with the DNC. Now, apparently, this is one of the things that is kind of going around. And I don't know if it's true or not, okay? What we want to do is we want to throw some things out there today to just kind of air them out, because we have to be very careful about what narratives we attach ourselves to. It's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer that things aren't what they seem. And so we have to approach these things in a semi-delicate fashion, obviously with some respect. We won't take the respect out of it. But at the same time, it's our, I believe, duty to look into what's happening at a collective level and use whatever tools we have available in order to untangle this layer of the matrix. And it's happening more and more and more. There are websites, some of which are, you got to take a shower after you go through some of the message boards, but there's 4chan and certainly the POL, which stands for politically incorrect. The POL section of 4chan, formerly Reddit, was a good place to uncover some of this stuff. And now there's Votes, which has become sort of the new Reddit. And some of the stuff today I'll be sourcing off of Vote, and other stuff I'll be sourcing off of 4chan. So let me see if I just got to line everything up here. Okay, this is from 4chan. So apparently Seth Rich, again, this is one of the rumors. Seth Rich was supposed to meet with investigators the day after he was taken out. Okay, so he was supposed to meet like the day after he experienced this, shooting. He was supposed to meet with investigators and give them his testimony about what was happening and what was happening with the Clinton campaign and the DNC and all that stuff. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, let me see if I can find this other piece here. And this has to do with, let me see if I can find this. Hold on. Okay, yeah, okay. This has to do with John Podesta. And John Podesta sent out this email. And the email basically said that, you know, that there were leakers. It came through WikiLeaks. Let me see if I can find this. I got a lot going on here on the computer. Hold on. So it's Podesta. Let's just do this. So some of you might know it already. Podesta email. WikiLeaks. Seth Rich. Okay. Let's see if I can just zoom in on this for everybody here. So there are a lot of people out there that said, okay, if you go and you look up this this story, you're going to see the top stories, and a lot of it is debunking this whole Seth Rich piece. So you'll see one last time the Seth Rich story is garbage. The report that Seth Rich, the slain DNC staffer, is a hot hunk of hokum. Washington Examiner. Okay. So this is from Zero Hedge, and I think I read this. Might have read this 2 days ago. I just want to make sure. All right. Okay, so Rich had been at Lou's City Bar. That's where he had been until about 1:15. And he didn't get home till 4 in the morning. So he was out tying one on. And I just want to find this. Hold on. Here we go. Let me just see if this is going to be. This is from Common Sense Show, Dave Hodges. He says, let's see. Oh, man. I don't want a video. Let's see. Anyway, I don't want to drag down the energy of the show too much. Essentially, Podesta says, okay, let me just try one more. I want to read this word for word so you understand it. Okay, I found it. Here we go. Okay. All right, so this is what Podesta says, and this isn't WikiLeaks. You could go on WikiLeaks, you can find the exact same thing. It is not. I'm not bringing up anything that's faked. It says here, Sunday, February 22nd, 2015, John Podesta @gmail.com. Wrote, agree, happy to talk to the Davids. That's Plouffe and Axelrod, by the way. Happy to talk to the Davids. Call me crazy, but I think if we can survive next month, it will be possible. Maybe even straightforward to get our arms around this once there is an actual campaign. I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leaker, whether or not we have any real basis for it. Okay, so that's one of the texts or emails that could be theoretically a smoking gun. And now what happens in the rest of this piece is they try to link up a lot of these other mysterious Clinton deaths to this whole Seth Rich thing, which is sort of, I don't know, maybe guilt by association or guilt by accusation. So I wanted to read that because that's part of it. Okay, now this is really another interesting quote here. This is what Clinton says on July 12th. So this is one day after Seth Rich has been shot. From Sandy Hook to Orlando to Dallas and so many other places, these tragedies tear at our soul, Clinton said in Portsmouth, New Hampshire on July 12th. And so do the incidents that don't even dominate the headlines. Just this past Sunday, a young man, Seth Rich, who worked for the Democratic National Committee to expand voting rights, was shot and killed in his neighborhood in Washington. He was just 27 years old. He's 27. Surely we can agree that weapons of war have no place on the streets of America. And of course, that's all hollow. The Metropolitan Police Department's Homicide Branch told WND Tuesday it is actively investigating Mr. Rich's murder and is working with the family to bring closure to the case. They never did that. There was a stand down by the FBI, and there was a stand down by the local police department. They didn't do it. Okay, so he gets carted off to the hospital. Now we're trying to understand what's happening here. He gets carted off to the hospital. And what happens at the hospital? Well, I found this on 4chan. Take it for however you want. Okay, this is the world we're living in here. So if you can go to 4chan is one of these places where you can, if you're a whistleblower, you can kind of dump stuff. All right, because it's very anonymous and it's also very shady at times and tricky, and there's a lot that you have to sort through. Anyway, here's what this guy who goes on is anonymous, and he says fourth year surgery resident here who rotated at WHC Washington Hospital Center last year. It won't be hard to identify me, but I feel that I shouldn't stay silent. Seth Rich was shot twice with 3 total gunshot wounds. Entry and exit and entry. He was taken to the OR emergency where we performed an XLAP and found a small injury to segment 3 of the liver, which was packed, and several small bowel injuries, pretty common for gunshot wounds, to the back exiting the abdomen. Which we resected 12 centimeters of bowel and left him in discontinuity, didn't hook everything back up, with the intent of performing a washout in the morning. He did not have any major vascular injuries otherwise. I've seen dozens of worse cases than this, which survived. And nothing about his injuries suggested to me that he'd sustained a fatal wound. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a case of somebody who's been shot, and not fatally, and taken care of. In the meantime, he was transferred to the ICU and transfused 2 units of blood. When his post-surgery crit came back, -20, he was stable and not on any pressors, and it seemed pretty routine. About 8 hours after he arrived, we were swarmed by Leos, and pretty much everyone except the attending and a few nurses was kicked out of ICU, disallowing visitors. Normally every odd hour, example given, 1 a.m., 3 a.m., etc., is not something we do routinely. It was weird as hell. At turnover that morning, we were instructed not to round on the VIP that came in last night. That's exactly what the attending said. And no one except for me and another resident had any idea who he was talking about. No one here was allowed to see Seth except for my attending when he died. No code was called. I rounded on patients literally next door, but was physically blocked from checking in on him. I've never seen anything like it before, and while I can't say 100% that he was allowed to die, I don't understand why he was treated like that. Take it how you may, hashtag POL, hashtag comma. I'm just one low-level doc. Something's fishy, though, that's for sure. Okay, so you can take that for however you want to experience it, see where it lands. It sounds to me like there is a possibility that Seth Rich went into the hospital and he went in fine and he did not make it out of the hospital, which is what happened to you, or at least he didn't make it out in the same way that he came in. Because I think that there might be another possibility here. Okay, now remember, we are dealing with levels and levels and levels of reality. The more that I think about the movie inception, the more that I think that it's really not just a model of living and dreaming and layers of it, but it's actually kind of a model for reality in general. Because as we go through these phases here post-Trump, where the chaos is swirling around us and we're trying to make heads and tails and sense out of in this wild, chaotic spin, it's really easy to, grab and grasp and reach after low-hanging fruit. Like, it's really easy to look at this that I just read to you and say, aha, see, we found a secret source on 4chan, right? And what am I doing? I'm talking about it. And what are you doing? You're listening to it, and you may pass it along to other people. And who knows? Maybe it becomes viral, and now we've got this narrative that he didn't. And I'm not saying that it isn't true. It could very well be true. But I'm also saying that it also could not be true. In that it could be a very sophisticated kind of red herring that leads us to believe that Seth Rich is dead, and there was an unseen hand that was literally facilitating that in a way that it didn't have to. So you see where I'm coming from here. So we're digging in. We're going into these places. We're going into these shadowy realms of the internet. And there are a lot of good people that are trying to figure stuff out. And I don't blame them. A lot of them are young. A lot of them are, between the age of like 18 and around 23. So we're talking Generation Z kids. We're not, there may be some millennials kicking around in these websites. But I think a lot of them are quite young. So we have to be willing to entertain different levels of reality and meaning simultaneously. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to get caught up in some weird honey trap. And it's like, aha. It feels to me like all of a sudden now the right and the conservatives and the paleo conservatives and the alt-right and the conspiracy theorists, they're being trolled now. They're being trolled through this whole Seth Rich thing. Just like they were trolled through Pizzagate and Wikipedia. And what's really weird is like, I'm sorry, not Wikipedia, but WikiLeaks. But what's really weird is that, hey, look, this is kind of a masterful trick and an illusion. We're going to show you what went on there. We're going to show you enough so that you can put the pieces together, which I think are quite real, by the way. And we're going to create it in such a way so that there's enough to kind of sink your teeth into, but not enough to explicitly make a case. So that if we want to, we can spin this in a way and you can get your ass caught in a mousetrap with this. And there was a lot of that happening in Pizzagate. And I also think that people, for instance, on Reddit, were taking it a lot further than they had expected. There's some smart people out there. Like, for instance, I was on 4chan and they had found Seth Rich's email account. And not only did they find it, they actually hacked it. So there are some emails, like they have one email in particular, which is I think it's a Seth Rich email to Jon Stewart. That's on there. So he was communicating with Jon Stewart. Very interesting. Like, how many people communicate with Jon Stewart? It's just a thought and a question mark. So we have to be, we have to be aware. We have to look at this, bring it out, air it out. See where the pieces are. Talk about it, look at it, and talk about it, and we can't really come to any strong conclusions yet because we're still witnessing this event unfold. And it's like a Venus flytrap in some ways. We had that Rod Wheeler, who was the private investigator, who seemed pretty sure of everything, and all of a sudden he had to walk everything back. And we had one day was, see, there's something going on here. It wasn't the Russians that leaked it. It was this kid that leaked it. Now, apparently he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He was very fond of Bernie Sanders. One could make a case, ideologically, that he saw what was happening with Bernie Sanders and decided to blow the whistle. You can make a case for that. And wouldn't be that far-fetched. Not that Bernie Sanders deserved it, to be honest with you. I'm sorry. Bernie was... So many people wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. I would have loved to have seen a Bernie Sanders-Trump election. I think Bernie Sanders would have won. And I would have loved to have seen what Bernie Sanders would have done with the country. To be honest with you, I would have been really interested. Okay, you've got these great ideas, these great plans. Let's see what you got, man. Put it to use. Let's road test those ideas, brother. I would, as much as I don't like Bernie Sanders, I would have been very interested to see how it all worked out. But I guarantee you this: had Bernie Sanders won, the right, the alt-right, the paleo-conservatives, whoever they are, they would not be causing as much of a shit as the left and the progressive have with Trump. They would have just said, okay, you won. And we got to get better. We got to get better. We've got to figure this out. Our message wasn't strong enough. We were, maybe too soft on Hillary, whatever. But the people who would have voted for Trump had Sanders won, they would have said, okay, we took our shot and you beat us. And maybe not all of them. Maybe you'd have a few sour grapes in the bunch, because that's the way it is. But they wouldn't have reacted in the same way that we've seen the left react and the progressives. And, it's kind of working because it's smoking people out. It's smoking people out. Anyway, so I wanted to play this interview. This is another piece with this whole Seth Rich thing. The interview's bizarre. All right, I'm going to play it right off of YouTube because I don't have I didn't upload the file. But here we go. Let me play this for you. This is the DNC SAF. Now, this was posted. I'm going to give you some background here. This was posted on July 13th, 2016, just 2 days after Seth Rich was shot. And this is with his mother and his father and his brother, and the whole thing is very strange. They've got tons of Disney pictures in the background. The mother's holding a panda. Apparently Seth Rich was really into pandas and dressed up like a panda. All right, so let me play this. Here we go.
And what we learned from Kelsey.
Kelsey's the girlfriend. Here we go. One more time.
From what we gather from what we've heard from the detectives, and what we learned from Kelsey, he was talking to her. She heard some noise on the phone. She said, "Are you okay? Are you home?" He says, "Yeah, I'm home." And then it's, "I have to call you back." And we don't know what happened there, except he ended up shot twice in the back, and they said he was talking to the officers when they first got there. He was maybe stable when he got to the hospital, and then things went bad, and bullets and people don't match well.
He had bruising on his face, he had bruising on his knuckles, and he had bruising on his knees. So we know he struggled, but we believe someone came from behind him. Was he pushed down? What the struggle was? There's no surveillance yet that we have heard of or anything. We know the police are looking for that, but we may never know what actually happened.
If it was a robbery, it wasn't successful because the police have all his belongings, cell phone, wallet, credit cards, money, so
Nothing was taken.
nothing was taken from him. So if that's what they were trying to do, they got scared and they ran off. He was a caring person, that he wanted to make a difference. And unfortunately, those visions, those ideas are going to have to be unfulfilled. That he's not able in the communities or the whatever things he was working on. His biggest thing now was helping make sure that people, who wanted to vote, that they could find the polling places, they could vote, so that everybody can do what they want, and that we can have a better nation.
He also would tell you, make the most of every moment, because you never know when the next moment isn't going to exist. And laugh.
I think that hits so many of the points about what Seth, how we want to live, and it's like, make a difference, do good things, treat people fairly. It's and try to make the world better. I think that's what Seth's goal was: make a difference.
Okay. You can find this and watch it for yourself. DNC staffer wanted to make a difference, family says. That's 2 days after he was killed. Okay, so first of all, they're in Omaha. They're at their home. How come they're not in Washington, D.C.? I mean, if that's where their son was killed, how come they're not there? I'm just going to put myself in their shoes. If that was my son, I'd be on a plane and I'd be there in a heartbeat. Heartbeat. I'd like to talk to them. I'd like them to ask them, because he had everything on him. Right? He had everything on him. He had a cell phone. He had numbers in the cell phone. He was on the phone with his girlfriend. Correct? Am I right? So if you're, and look, I don't work in a hospital. I don't know what the procedure is. But if a person has ID and they have a cell phone, wouldn't you try to get a hold of somebody? Like, who is he talking to? Hi, who is this? This is Kelsey. Hi, Kelsey. This is Dr. Bob at Washington General. We have a young man here by the name of Seth Rich. I believe he was on the phone with you. He's in the hospital. He seems to be okay. He was shot a couple times. He seems to be okay. We're watching him. Do you have a number for Seth's parents, or would you like to call them? Boom. Call the parents. If I'm that parent, I hear my kid's in the hospital, and he's been shot, I'm not even wasting any time. I'm on a plane, and I'm telling the gate agent, my kid was shot in Washington, D.C. Whoever's selling you a ticket, is there any way I can get a break on a ticket? I bet you they'd do it. Even if you couldn't, you got to pay that. It's your son, right? You got to go. And then you're at you get to the hospital room, and you want to be there, and none of this happened. I mean, they're there in their place in Omaha, and they're showing no emotion. They're showing no emotion. And the whole thing is very bizarre. And then look it up. DNC staffer killed, wanted to make a difference. Family says, go to YouTube, look at the video, watch it for yourself. There's no emotion there at all. None whatsoever. And then the brother is sitting there in the front, and he's got this bizarre smile that he's trying to really suppress. Like he should never have been a part of that interview. It's uncomfortable to watch that kid, because you think that he's either emotionally retarded. Pardon me, I don't mean to step on any emotionally retarded people's toes out there. But he's either emotionally retarded or something else is going on, and he's got a secret, and he's trying his very best to keep that a secret. So what if Seth Rich was a plant? What if he was a plant? And was the shooting real? Who knows? One would think so, but again, the FBI and the Baltimore PD stood down. So you ask yourself, well, what about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and the reward? And well, maybe that's real too, or maybe not. I hate to be vague and play this kind of role in the fringe and not slam my fist down and say we've got miscarriage of justice. And I think we've got to be really smart, and we have to delicately take these things apart and use whatever means we have possible in order to do that. It's fascinating stuff. Fascinating. But I'm telling you right now, that family, they have no emotional content. None. I would love to hear John David Oates do reverse speech on them. I would love it. He should be a regular on my show. If you don't know John David Oates, he is a guy that specializes in reverse speech. Okay, so George Webb is going to interview Aaron Rich. So that's coming. I don't know who George Webb is. Some of you might. I'm over on Vote now. And there's some interesting stuff here. This is one of the things that I wanted to... There's like a... Hold on. So these are a number of people that are postulating on Vote what's going on, because it's so bizarre. This whole video is really bizarre, especially with like the Disney stuff in the background and the panda. It's really, 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 really strange. And it was on ABC TV, ABC News. There's this theory. I'm just trying to find this theory. So there's confusion with his girlfriend. There's a woman named Claudia, and then there's another woman named Kelsey. News stories have her full name as Kelsey Merca, like Merca. Is that interesting? And then there's another woman named Claudia. So there's two pieces here. Now, apparently, Seth Rich had info about how Hillary had two separate polling places. I just ran across that. It was really interesting. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah. Apparently he had info on her, and there were two like separate polling places that were set up. So that's another kind of angle but the whole thing is strange. So these are some of the comments that are coming through on YouTube here. And the comments are actually pretty interesting. This one guy asked, did Seth Rich even really die? From the conduct of the family, I'm wondering if Rich's death was fake and he's disappeared somewhere. It just doesn't ring true. This woman, Catherine, says, JP, I'm wondering if the same thing about Sean Lucas. There's another one of those people who got snuffed out. I think he's the Kratom guy. And let's see, here's another comment. Oh, horse crap, ABC. The family of Seth hired DNC damage control expert on their behalf to help control any backlash against the very same DNC who assassinated their own son, for Christ's sake. That's not a great comment. Here's another one. Duping delight on son's face. Pedo Panda, Pedo Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp. Looks like a pizza-related map to me. And then this other guy says, this interview right here is staged and fake, no doubt about it. Okay. All right. Here's what I think. And I think Seth Rich is alive. That's my sense. I think he's alive. I think that he's been sort of removed. I think he's somewhere else. I think he's been recirculated, and I think he probably was part of some network. That's my sense. That's my 2 cents here. And the emails may not even have come from him. They might have. But maybe not. I think we have to be really kind of, aware and clever and on our toes with this stuff. Anyway, I'm going to keep digging more into the whole Seth Rich piece because I think it's I got to turn my volume down. Sorry. Because I think it's worth pursuing, especially as they're shutting it down now and using this as yet another kind of conservative versus progressive, liberal kind of cultural wedge. I mean, I think that there's even, rumors out there that Trump paid Rod Wheeler, and this is the whole thing is pretty amazing in a lot of ways. Like, have you ever lived through such drama and trauma? Have you ever? It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. Steve Creamy, who has been on the show and will be on the show at the end of the month, gave me some timeline stuff here. Let's see. Here we go. June 22nd. This is just from June 22nd of 2016 to March 31st of 2017. John Ash, president of the UN General Assembly, crushes his own throat, lifting weights at home. He was both under indictment and about to testify against the DNC. Here's Sean Lucas subpoenas Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC on video for ripping off Bernie Sanders. Oh, okay. And then July 8th, I think it's actually July 11th, Seth Rich is killed. July 22nd, WikiLeaks releases DNC emails showing their corruption and the theft of nomination from Sanders. August 2nd, Sean Lucas found dead by his girlfriend in bathroom from polypharmacy, just a casualty of the Walgreens Rite Aid wars. Apparently, Sean Lucas was doing kratom, which has been proven to be a pretty good substance for dealing with addiction. And kratom was, because of his death, was immediately sentenced to being a Schedule I drug, I think. So that was kind of another piece around this fallout that's very interesting. October 22nd, Gavin McFadden, likely contactee of Seth Rich, dies of lung cancer. March 31st, 2017, Johnson Winston McGill dies before testifying before Trey Gowdy, 34, heart attack, discovered by Huma Nikita. Who makes these names up? Huma Nikita. It's like a combination of Huma Abedin and Nikita, La Femme Nikita, right? From the TV show, the MK Ultra movie, the MK Ultra girl, the assassin, programmed to kill, La Femme Nikita. Okay, and Johnston... Oh my God, Steve's so funny. Discovered by Huma Nikita, cremated at sundown according to his religion. So he was cremated at sundown. Apparently an obscure Hibernian Hebrew tribe. This is he's funny. Anyway, that's your hit parade. And we want to untangle this thing. We want to find anomalies, right? We want to try to understand where he came from. We're going to try to understand what his influences were. We try to understand what his education was. We're going to try to understand who his associates were, both directly and indirectly. He was part of a pretty powerful network. And remember, this is a network. It's what it is. It's a network of schools, a network of summer camps, and it's a network that has launched really powerful people into our culture. Ben Bernanke, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, Deborah Messing. So we got to keep that in mind. right? And we have to, again, unravel the strange and the inconsistent. So take it for what you will for now. These are the latest details surrounding Seth Rich. And we'll continue to do the work and to, see this as an unfoldment of a portion of reality. It is not the entirety of reality. And in fact, one could even make a case that it is a huge distraction. That we could be doing things that are better for ourselves and different, right? We could be improving ourselves. We could be learning a language, or, we could be fill in the blank, whatever it is you want to do. We could be focusing, or I could be focusing my energy on being more loving and coming up with wonderful multidimensional solutions where we just, share and vibrate at a certain pitch and frequency, and, we just rise above this. And yes, there is some of that too. I mean, this is true. We can be doing all these things. But I think it's a very important exercise because we interface with this layer of reality, this layer of the matrix consistently, and it's only going to get more chaotic and weird. Trust me on this. There's no going back. This is the new normal, and tomorrow will be a newer normal. And the day after that will be a newer normal, but every single day will be a little more abnormal than the last or the previous one. So what we're trying to do here is, we're trying to get our bearings in this strange state of zero G, because this is kind of, where it's at. Where's our center? Where's our moorings? We really don't have any. And so what we try to do is we try to grab onto things. Okay, well, this is it. This is the thing that's going to turn the tide. It's like I've got people on Facebook that say, oh, this is great. This is great. This is the smoking gun. It's going to get Hillary. No, I don't think anything will ever happen to Hillary. I don't think anything is ever going to happen to Hillary. I said it before. She could have been munching on a baby's ankle, during the debates, and nobody would have cared or said anything. So let's dispossess ourselves of that. But what we want to do now is we want to use these events so that we can get sharp. So that our skills of discernment and our deductive abilities get sharper and clearer. So what I'm trying to do, and I think we're trying to do it together here, and not fall into these pitfalls. Because what happens when we get into the pitfall? And I remember the first time this happened to me, and I was kind of embarrassed. And it was something that Alex Jones was running. And this was around 2000 and I think 9 or 10. And there was this strange, like, Eastern European group that had come in and bought this really small town. They took this small town in, like, North Dakota or Montana over, and they had a prison. They'd built a prison there, and they didn't have anybody to fill up the prison. So these very strange kind of Eastern European types, came into town and took everything over, and Alex Jones, and I didn't listen to him a lot, but I would listen to him back then, and he basically said that, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen. They're going to start rounding people up, and I got pretty fired up about it. And he actually went up there. He drove up there. He took those people on, and it's like, okay, all right. Remember, this is 2009, 2010, and I watched it, and then they just up and left. Left this poor town that had no industry or anything. All they had was a nice, unused prison, essentially. I thought to myself, I've just been played. This thing grabbed my attention hard. And I got into it, and I've been played. And I have not forgiven Alex Jones. Well, actually, he taught me a good lesson. But I've been super wary of Alex Jones ever since then. Because that's an extreme kind of example. And what's going to happen is through this chaos and through this kind of strange time we're living in, there are people who are going to be upset and angry and pissed off and depressed and all these things that occur when you go through a massive period of change, which is what we're going through. And the center is not going to be easy to find nor hold on to if once you do find it. So we have to come in through the periphery and the edges, and we'll surf the edges. That's what we'll do, and we'll continue to pull these things apart and do our best to bring some level of awareness and consciousness as we do it, right? The worst thing we can do now, and I got to do this myself and check it at the door, is to get really, really, really emotionally ramped up, and have this real sense of, righteous indignation. And that's good sometimes. Like sometimes you need a good blast of righteous indignation, just like Thor needs his hammer and he needs to, smash it on the ground every now and then. But we can't move from righteous indignation to righteous indignation to righteous indignation because, number one, it'll burn us out. And number two, there's never any resolution of the righteous indignation. Do you see? So by disassembling these things in ways that we can look at them from different perspectives and really question the nature of reality, then I think we're onto something, where we're taking it to another level. At least that's what I'd like to think. I think that's about it for today. When we ran about 42 minutes. Oh, an hour and 12 minutes. An hour and 15 minutes. That's not bad. That's about all I wanted to share. So let's keep our eyes on what's happening this weekend if you feel like it. Donald Trump is he's getting the hell out of town. Hey, man, the knives are sharpening for Trump, aren't they? But here's another thing, right? Do they really want to impeach him? I mean, I know they're talking about impeaching him and everything, but if they impeach him, they're going to have Mike Pence, and Mike Pence is their worst nightmare, trust me. But maybe what they really want to do is they want to have him mortal, sort of wounded and kept alive for a while. You know what I'm saying? Wounded and kept alive. That way he could be vulnerable. And, he'll do things when he's wounded. He'd be more useful to them wounded and vulnerable than out of the picture. Think about that. That's another way of looking at this, right? We've got to again up our game, get it to another level. True Node's going into his 12th house. It should be right on his Mars right now. Of course, he wasted no time when that True Node hit the ascendant. He fired James Comey. Hello, that's Astrology 101 right there. Yesterday, apparently, he bombed some Syrian army folks, which is unfortunate. This is what I've came across on the internet. It was even Fox News. So, not that I read Fox News, just popped up on the internet. So that's a True Node on Mars, and it's going into the 12th house now. And it's going to be in his 12th house for almost 2 years. So there's going to be a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff happening with Donald Trump. And I guarantee you, through this trip to Saudi Arabia and I guess he's going to Israel too? Isn't that right? Well, there's going to be a lot of 12th house planning going on. And of course, Secret Agent 666 is along for the ride as he prepares himself to save the world and bring on Armageddon. So we have a lot to look forward to, don't we? Absolutely. All right. Let's put the brakes on it right there. As always, I don't see you. I know some of you, and I really appreciate you listening to this show and having this experience with me together. It means a great deal to me. So thank you for all of your support and kind words that you send me in emails and YouTube messages. I really appreciate that. It's a vital part of what I do and give back. So that said, have yourself a really good weekend. Do something good for yourself and your loved ones. Feed yourself something solid and nutritious, whether it's an experience or a meal or whatever it is. Take it in and really, experience some quality in your life. All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. We'll see you back here on Sunday night for the live stream. How about that? We'll be here for the live stream. I promise. We didn't do one a while ago, but I promise we'll be here for the live stream. Oh, I got a message from the chat room. How about that? Let me see that. Let's sign off. I hardly get any chat messages. What do I have here? What do we got? Well done. Good questions. Plus, if it was a robbery, why do they still have the computer? That's from Steve. Yeah. Why do they still have the computer? Exactly. Why do they still have the computer? Yeah, good question, Steve. Let me get Steve back on here. All right. Here's the outro. Have a great Friday. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Robert Phoenix.